you had a good break and you're fueled up and ready for our next session. So today I'm going to be talking about motivating and inspiring millennials in the workplace. And I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. I am a leadership coach. And essentially what that means is I equip leaders and their teams with all the soft skills necessary to be excellent in their roles. I also help align them to passion and purpose both in their personal life and in their professional life. And I've been doing this for about 7+ years, so it's definitely a passion of mine, and I'm super happy to be here. I'll tell you a little bit more about myself near the end of the presentation, and so that you have a better sense of what it is that I do. But before we get into it, just want to cover a couple of housekeeping things. I will have Q&A at the end, so if you have any questions, please do hold them till the end. And I'll answer them then or afterwards. I'm available too. I also have a special offer for you that I'll share with you at the end of my talk today. It's actually a give back offer that I don't do very often, but entrepreneurship is near and dear to my heart, and so every once in a while I offer it, and I'll tell you more about that. If you have a cell phone, put it on silent or on vibrate, and if I see you using your cell phone today, I will assume that you love what I'm saying and that you're tweeting about it. So if you're going to tweet, do definitely tag me, at Nira Life Coach, in your tweets, okay? And then I can see them and I can share them as well. Okay, so our topic today, quite the popular topic. We've been hearing a lot about millennials over the last five-ish years or so. We hear a lot of negative things about them for the most part, and I'm going to guess that there's probably quite a few millennials here today. So this talk is about how to motivate and inspire millennials in the workplace, but really it's about how as a leader, that's somebody who's growing your business, who will probably hire millennials at some point in time if you haven't already, how will you engage with them? How will you retain them? How will you help them be ambassadors and champions of your business, okay? So maybe for some of you, this is a little bit, thinking about it a little bit in the future than right now, but hopefully it will be helpful for you. So I want to just get a sense of who's in the room and your knowledge level a little bit before we get started. So I'm going to ask you some questions. If you can relate to them, just raise your hand. That's all you have to do, okay? So my first question is, how many of you understand the relationship between these two things? How many of you have actually had to use these two things together? Yesterday? Okay, what about this one? Does anybody remember this one? What is it?
Game console.
Yeah, which one?
Super Nintendo.
And when did it come out?
92.
1990. Very close.
I'm fixing them currently.
All right. Video games have come a long way. All right, so I have a couple of personal questions, though. So please do share with me. If you were born before 1980, could you raise your hand? Okay. What if you were born after 2000? No. Between 1980 and 2000? Okay, a few. So if you raise your hand to being born between 1980 and 2000, you are a millennial. Millennials are approximately 17 to 37 years old right now. If you were born 1946 to about 1960, you are a baby boomer. And if you're born from 61 to 79, you're considered Generation X. And if you know anyone born after 2000, they're Generation Z. All right? So I'm sure we'll be hearing about them in another 5 years. So, like I said, they're 70 to 37 years old. They already represent a majority of the workforce. And they're only growing in numbers. They're the most educated generation in history, and they're the most diverse. Okay, so that's not just racially, that's ethnically, language, gender identity, all kinds of diversity. Okay? And that's actually quite an asset because it helps us improve the way that we do things, considering our products and services from different perspectives. So what are millennials? Actually, before I ask what do millennials care about, what are some of the things we've heard about millennials? I'm just curious. What are some of the things that some stereotypes or challenges?
I call my kids lazy.
Lazy. Yeah?
No, they're always looking for contracts. So like nowadays, because they don't want to do the job, so they're always going for self-employed.
Oh, okay. So they don't want to report to somebody. They want to start their own business.
Similar to being lazy.
They have no accountability.
I'm a millennial too.
Yeah, okay.
Idealistic.
Idealistic, okay. Yes?
Limited attention span.
Limited attention span.
Passionate.
Ooh, finally a positive one. Yeah? Oh, sorry, yeah?
Narcissism.
Narcissism and
Feelings of entitlement.
feelings of entitlement.
Are they device dependent? Like
Some have said they are device dependent, yes.
technology.
Overeducated?
Overeducated. Yeah,
Experiences over possessions and assets.
yeah. That's a really good one too.
Are they really overeducated? Because I hear a lot of people, they just drop off. So they said, I'm going to get out of university, I can make $70 an hour.
We're seeing that trend a lot now, actually, in Generation Z, like the younger people. We're seeing a trend of questioning whether going to post-secondary education, gaining a bunch of debt is really worth it at the end of the day. So the question is it better to be an entrepreneur early on, or is it more worthwhile to go to school?
Because there's a person actually who started this business that he says he's going to give, if you drop out of university, he's going to give you $100,000.
Yeah. Yeah, I forget, what's his name?
There's a guy.
He was from Dragon's
I think it
Den
is
or
him,
something?
yeah.
I don't remember,
You can get 100 grand if
Mm-hmm.
I bought the school.
Okay, so yeah, this is typically the conversation we have about millennials, right? Lots and lots of things that aren't always positive, and not that they're ill-founded, they just are rooted in certain realities. So it's important for us to understand that. And so to take you on that journey, I thought we'd explore some of the things that we know that millennials care about. One of the things that I'm cautious of is when we talk about an entire group of people, it's really, it's not fair to paint them all with the same brush, right? There's an incredible amount of diversity within any generational cohort, but we're just going to look at things from a trends perspective, okay? What do surveys and reports tell us about trends among millennials? So that's where I'm coming from today. If you can't relate to it and you're a millennial, please by no means am I telling you that you have to fit into these categories, okay? So 7 things that the millennials really care about. The first one is a sense of personal accomplishment, right? So that's the idea that they want to know that they're doing something good. They're feeling good about it, right? Oftentimes it's not just an intrinsic sense of personal accomplishment. Millennials are the social media generation, right? So a lot of times your value, your worth has been associated to the number of likes or the number of views that you've gotten on social media. So sometimes that pressure for personal accomplishment and doing that really quickly can also be a perception thing or an image thing in terms of how are we being perceived by our peers. Fulfillment and challenge, right? So we heard some comments along those lines that it's hard for them to be satisfied. Sometimes this is also taken as them being flaky. Really what it is that everybody wants impact and meaning in their work, and they are looking for a challenge. And when we really look at it, we find that millennials actually aren't that different from previous generations. Baby boomers stayed in their full-time positions for about 21 months in 1979. Millennials stay for about 19 months. It's really not that different. Boomers stay for about 17 and a half months in part-time employment, and millennials stay for about 15 months. So if we look at that and we really see what's going on, we see that their career path and the way they shape it may really not be that different than how past generations have done it. And they want flexibility, right? So they want to know that their employers care about their personal life and that they have one. And I think that especially in tech, what we see is this sort of blurring of lines between work and personal life, trying to bring play into the office. And while that's important to some degree with culture, at the end of the day, what millennials that we're finding, what they really want is a workplace that respects that they have a life outside of work, right? 70% of millennials prefer to work remotely, right? So that is definitely a challenge when we're thinking about culture and trying to get people in the office so collaboration can happen. But flexibility doesn't necessarily mean, or working remotely doesn't mean necessarily not coming to the office at all. It could mean, hey, I need to come into the office, but I need to come home, pick up my kids, do what I need to do with them, and then log in later on in the evening, right? So that's the kind of flexibility we're talking about. They want to be compensated for results over tenure, all right? So some of you may be able to relate to this, is that millennials really think they're really aware of the value that they bring to their organization, to their workplace. They're some of the hardest working people I have ever met, and they want to be compensated for that. And that doesn't necessarily mean just financially. It could be like acknowledgement at work, rewarded in other ways. Those kinds of things are important to them. And communication. Millennials grew up in a generation of constant feedback, constant communication, whether that's through online, through your parents, if you were around, if you had helicopter parents, right, giving you feedback all the time, or in school, right, we got a lot of feedback, oftentimes positive, in school. So millennials are used to being communicated with and kept in the loop. So they want direct, clear, and honest communication. And oftentimes will sense if they're being kept out of the loop, they will sense that, and that has a tendency of breaking down rapport and trust. And they want collaboration versus competition. So studies show that 88% of millennials prefer a collaborative working culture over a competitive one, right? So when we're thinking about motivating our colleagues or team members, whatever it is, it's important to think of that competition goes a certain way, but collaboration will go, take you longer with millennials. They'll take you further with them in the sense that they want to learn from their team members. They want to learn cross-functionally and from different roles. So definitely providing those cross-learning opportunities within the workplace is really important. We've seen that in workplaces where there's millennials working with Gen Xers or baby boomers, and there's tensions because they do all the generations do things a little bit differently. This idea of bringing collaboration and learning from each other, so the other each generation sort of bringing expertise and teaching one another has actually been a really helpful sort of thing to do in the workplace. And last but not least, they're socially conscious. They are amongst the most socially conscious generation that has existed. They have inherited a planet in a certain position and are aware of that, and therefore know that it's their responsibility to create a meaningful impact when it comes to the world for their children. If we think about them, they're really not. How many of you can relate to some of the things on here? They're really not that different from us. The one thing that sets them apart is that they're more willing to they have strong values and are more willing to articulate those values, right? And they're more willing to sort of come out and say, often ask for what it is that they want. And so in the workplace, what tends to happen is when we have millennials sort of coming into the workplace, there tends to be this resistance. And I saw this quote on LinkedIn. I thought it was great just a little while ago. And it says, the most dangerous phrase in the language is, we've always done it this way, right? And I thought that it was so incredible with this topic, because that's exactly what happens with millennials. As they come into the workplace, or they come in into the market, and they start disrupting things, and people are like, well, why are they doing that? Things are already working. But we see that millennials are some of the best innovators. So much technology and great stuff has come over the years from them. They are the disruptor generation, right? Each generation has their quality, and the millennials bring forward disruption. So they're going to do that in the workplace too. And it's important for us, if we want, as businesses, if we want to grow and flourish, that we meet that need. And not just because it's a cool thing to do or because it's popular, precisely because by the year 2025, millennials will represent 3/4 of the workforce, right? So that's not too far away. 2025, they will represent 3/4 of the workforce, meaning that learning to understand, motivate, develop, lead millennials is absolutely critical. It's not just a nice to have for us anyways. Okay, so while knowing that, then what is it that we can do about it? And that sort of brings me to sort of the point of the presentation today is, how is it that we can, bring in strategies to lead them and to develop them and to motivate them? And knowing that what you'll learn here today is not just applicable to millennials, you can apply it to, all different people in the workplace. We're just talking about it in the context of millennials today. So step number 1 is build a genuine connection. And this is something that I think everybody would appreciate in a workplace, is to have a connection with their employer. But one of the things that was alarming and interesting and caught my attention was that the number one reason that millennials leave their workplace is because of their boss, right? So you better believe that one of the top reasons that they stay there is because of their boss, right? So that just highlights the idea that connection is so important. And also 69% of millennials surveyed feel that personal experiences are important to them. So how do we do this? And it's really not that challenging. I coach people to ask a simple question. And that simple question is, do my employees know that I care about them? And when we ask that question, it helps us to sort of become empathetic and reorient our strategy. And if we're missing anything, it helps us become aware of that as well. I have a little story that goes with this. I was working with a company last year, and they were in a place where they're growing really fast, so they needed to hire more resources, and they needed to keep the resources that they already had in terms of employees. And they noticed that they were losing some people. And they were probably losing people simply because it's a competitive industry that they're in. And so when we worked together, we thought, well, we could really get ahead of this if we knew in advance that our employees are being contacted by recruiters or that they're unsatisfied. And so we thought, well, the best way around that is if we build a connection and we build a genuine rapport and trust with employees so they can tell us about that. So they started very simply by letting their employees know that, hey, this is something we're going to do. We're really interested in creating a connection with you, and we want it to be genuine. So if there's anything that you think we can do about that to help create that environment, let us know. So they started with that. Then they started with having more events outside of work together, just casual ones. They started with having, in their check-in sessions with employees, they started asking, are you satisfied? Is there anything you can do to improve? And those led to them getting some really key information from their employees. And one of the things that they did was that one of the easiest things and one of the most effective was that they started to play more in the workplace. They started to joke around, be more friendly, and have a more fun culture, right? So not just they have, flip cup or beer pong or whatever, foosball, like those things that we tend to see in offices and think that's corporate culture, because it's not. It's part of it. They started to have one-on-one fun with each other. And through that process, what they found was employees were being open with them, but they also found out that there was a company that was trying to poach their employees through recruiters. And they found that out because their employees felt comfortable enough with them to share that after a couple of months of implementing these strategies. And so the VP of HR for this organization actually called that other company and said, hey, listen, I don't want to start a poaching war, but if that's what you're interested in, then we can. And from last I heard, none of their employees have gone over to that other company, so hopefully the poaching has stopped. So really that's just an example of how well putting that time up front in to build a connection can go for not just millennials, for any employee that you have in your organization, and for your team, right? Step number 2 is help millennials become personally invested. If we are personally invested in anything, we're more likely to stick with it and make it our own, right? So the way that we do that is remembering that emotions matter. When we look at millennials, we know that they are a generation that is aware of their emotions often and can often make decisions from gut instinct. Not that they don't care about logic, they do, but gut instinct is often part of the decision-making process. I'm a millennial myself, and as I reflect on that, that's very true for me as well. So recognizing in the workplace that emotions matter simply means I'm here to hear you, and I want you to feel heard. And now that I've heard you and I acknowledge your feelings, how can we work together to move to our desired solution, right? Step number 2 is inviting their feedback. So when you invite someone's feedback in terms of what's working, what's not working, what do we need to improve, how do you feel about our processes, what happens is that when we allow that feedback to come in and we think about it and we actually implement it, a person starts to see themselves reflected in their workplace. And as soon as we see ourselves and our ideas reflected in our workplace or anywhere that we are going to feel more invested, we're going to feel more connected, and we're going to feel part of that organization. And help create a roadmap to success, right? So this happens often as we start along our journey, and we're not really clear about where we're going, right? And so it's important for employees and even entrepreneurs, if you're solopreneurs, is to be clear about that roadmap. It's where are we going? Why is it that we're doing the things we're doing? So that you can continue to stay motivated on your journey when sometimes the going gets tough, right? So I had an example recently. I'm still working with this project manager who was working with an organization that was working with SAP for a while and wasn't feeling that excited or motivated about his work. And recently, less than a year ago, he moved over to a Salesforce implementation partner. And he's doing project management work for them, and he's really excited about it for a couple of months. But then again, after that couple of months passed, he started to feel kind of bored, not very enthusiastic, sort of looking for the next thing. And then he thought, well, maybe I just need to work for myself. And so he started looking at apps and products to develop, got super excited for 2 to 3 months, and then found himself not being very motivated anymore. And so he went and he talked to his boss, because his boss has spent time with him building a connection. So he felt he could talk to his boss and say, hey, listen, this is going on. I'm not feeling so great in my role, and I'm not sure if this company is for me or if this role is for me. In fact, I don't even really know what I want. Right? And it's at that point that I started working with him, and in our conversation very quickly what we both found, was that he didn't have a clear picture of where he wanted to be in 3 or 4 years, right? So we worked together to create a really clear picture about his, what's his ideal sort of role in 3 or 4 years. And he said, Nira, you know what, that's really exciting, but it's not exciting right now because it's so far away. Then he's like, I need something to be excited about now, which showed me that in order for him to continue on his roadmap, he needed to have goals, like short-term goals that excited him, but also helped him develop skills. So we created a list of technical skills, personal skills that he needed to learn that would help him on his roadmap to success, to his ultimate vision in 3 or 4 years. And so that he had something to work on and celebrate, right, along the way, so that he could continue to stay motivated. And so at work, he was also moved to a project that uses the Agile framework. If anyone's familiar with that, it's a results-based framework, which allows you to sort of conclude things as you go. So I just connected with him a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, and he said, I'm busier now more than ever. I'm really, really busy. But these are his words, I feel more invigorated and more alive than I ever have before. And that's the impact that creating your roadmap has, right? Knowing why it is you're doing what you're doing and where that's going to take you. So when it's not easy, when it's not the most fun, you know why you're doing it. Okay? So step number 3 is provide constructive feedback, all right? This one is really interesting to me. 3 out of 4 millennials feel in the dark about their performance. 69% see a company's review process as flawed. Has anyone worked at an organization where there has been a review process? Yeah? How often does that happen?
Yearly?
Yeah, usually.
Yes.
Yeah, usually annually if it happens at all, right? So what's the problem with that?
You don't know how you do it.
You don't know how you're doing? Yeah. And then, how does it feel when at the end of the year you get this feedback? And it was like, hey, you should have improved X, Y, Z.
It would be nice to know sooner.
Yeah, it would be nice to know sooner. The reason it would be nice to know sooner is that you get to have near real-time feedback, and you can improve your performance. Like I said, personal accomplishment is important to millennials, so giving them that feedback often is important to keeping them motivated and keeping them engaged. And it also gives the employer better results faster, right? In fact, 90% of millennials would feel more confident with ongoing check-ins, right? So no matter how big your team is, whether it's 2 people or more, there's a simple process you can implement. And you can even do this with yourself. It's what should I stop doing, start doing, and continue doing? 3 very powerful questions. Should I stop, start, and continue on a regular check-in basis that will give you clarity on what's working and what's not working and how to continue moving forward on your goals. So last but not least is be a coach. I think that this is absolutely the most important thing that a leader needs to know in an organization is how to be a coach to their employees, recognizing that millennials especially want coaching now more than ever. They want to know, how can I develop myself? How can I do the things that you're doing? Teach me how to do that. Organizations are actively losing out on millennial candidates, so that's a real thing that's happening. And being a coach simply is about how to coach someone to come to their own solutions, right? And a coach, that's really all a coach does. You don't, as a coach and as a leader, it's not your job to tell someone how to do their role, it's to help them get there on their own, right? When we do that, it's not just for the employee, it's to create a self-sustaining team who can then troubleshoot and problem solve on their own so that you don't need to hold their hand, especially when you're a small company and you have a million other things to do. The last thing you want is a revolving door where employees are coming in asking you questions every 2 seconds, right? That you need to answer. You want them to be able to come to the solutions on their own. And we do that in a few different ways. The first one is recognizing that every time we do something new, we will feel afraid. It's a biological response. So Millennials, like I said, sometimes because of the social media age, there can be a sort of an apprehension or resistance towards doing anything new that could cause feelings of potential failure. So when that happens, recognizing to be able to talk to them and lead them and coach them through knowing that when that fear comes up, it's simply an indication that growth is occurring. It's an indication that you're evolving into and stepping forward on your roadmap to success, right? And part of that is knowing that we have a million different decisions available at every moment in time, and all those decisions can lead to a completely different reality for us, right? So it's about not being tunnel vision and seeing one or two, helping them see all the different decisions that are, or choices available, and helping them take the steps that will take them further along their roadmap to success. And the way we do that is by asking powerful questions, right? One of my favorite questions to ask is, what's the opportunity for success? Or what is the opportunity that this is? And you ask that to every situation. So if you're not feeling really motivated in your role, if your employees aren't feeling very motivated in their role, they're not excited, whatever, something's going on, they're not doing so hot, ask, what's the opportunity for success? So is there a skill that you need to learn? Do you need to learn how to have difficult conversations? Do you need to learn how to give or receive feedback? Do you need to learn how to stick with a problem or a cause, even when the going gets tough? Is there a technical skill that you need to learn that this opportunity is allowing you to learn? So always asking, what's the opportunity that this is for success? And also, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? That's one of my favorite questions. It opens up a lot of different brainstorming. What would I do if I wasn't afraid? So like I said, the most important skill that a leader can have and that needs to have to create a successful team is to be a coach. All right, so I highly recommend you think about that and see how you're doing that and the opportunities for you to develop those skills as well. So that's the end of my conversation with you today. I'm going to step into Q&A and then I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself and tell you about my offer for you as well. So, before that though, let's remember some things. One is that millennials are an incredibly diverse group of people like I started out with, and that means that we need to be adaptive and agile, and recognizing that we can't apply the same strategy to every person, but we can certainly do our best to understand our leadership and communication style to adjust to those of others. And if you don't know where to start, just ask, am I creating an environment where millennials can thrive on my team? Okay, and now for Q&A. So any questions? Yes?
You mentioned a lot about the one way between, for the leader to talk to the team and to establish that close relationship. But what about the reverse? Do you recommend implementing some kind of reverse review process where you have your employees and the rest of the team kind of tell you what's good?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of organizations are doing those kinds of review processes now. I think that the best type of process to give each other feedback is something that doesn't require a lot of time and it requires really little prep, and it happens on an ongoing basis. So those questions that I said, what should we stop, start, and continue doing, are questions that can be used on a two-way dialogue, right, with the leader and with the employee, right? So I would say don't make it too much of a difficult process, but be open to having those conversations. Yeah.
Can you repeat the questions that you want millennials to ask? Like, is there technical skills?
Yeah. So I was saying, what's the opportunity that this is for success? So getting millennials or your employees or yourself, when you're not really feeling that engaged with your work, asking yourself, well, what's the opportunity that I might be missing? So is it that I need to build a personal skill? Like, do I need a soft skill that's around difficult conversations, feedback, it could be so many different things, communication. Or is there a technical skill that I need to learn that's going to help me on my career journey, right? Do I have an opportunity right now to gain that? You're welcome. Any others? Okay. All right. So like I said, I wanted to tell you a bit about myself. I've been likened to an interpersonal Swiss Army knife. One of my clients called me that, and I ran with it because I think it sounds really cool. But what that really means is that I teach new leaders how to lead. So oftentimes we find millennials in leadership positions. They've never led before, right? And all of a sudden they're growing a team, and it's a challenge. And there's an entire aspect of doing that and being a coach and helping your team become coachable. So that's one of the things I do. I help enable communication excellence, meaning I work with your team on different levels to improve the communication effectiveness for your team, whether it's leaders or down throughout the organization. And I help create lasting success habits. And what that really just means is, when we have a session like this or a longer facilitated session, today, we talked about millennials for 30 minutes or 40 minutes or so. This is something we talk about for half a day, right? And it's about taking the learnings in our workshop and then being able to create actual real behavior change in your real life. And that is done using different processes like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Some of you have heard that. And then I work in the 6 categories that hinder leaders and their teams. And so I offer, in those 6 categories, I offer half-day workshops, and they can cover different topics, difficult conversations, giving and receiving feedback, performance-based leadership, and emotional intelligence, which is really about what's your leadership style, how do you identify someone else's leadership style, and then how do you adjust to that leadership style. Leading effective meetings. Communication styles is all about how do you build rapport with your colleagues, but how do you build rapport with your clients too, or your potential clients, to increase buying. And last but not least is developing others in coaching for success. It's my most popular half-day session that is often taken up by leaders and organizations. We know that when you invest in coaching, there is a return of at least 7 times of your investment. So I can do that as a half-day session or a one-on-one coaching package if you want something more customized. So if you one-on-one or for a small team of executives, team leads, managers. And last but not least, I do alignment and visioning sessions. These alignment and visioning sessions are more about aligning your team from a values perspective and an emotions perspective and a culture perspective. And that can be for founders, for teams, and for organizations. Okay? So that's a little bit more about me. Thank you for hearing me out. If you have any questions, please do connect with me. I'm around. But my special offer is only available for today. It's the half-day Developing Others in Coaching for Success session. And it can be any of the half-day sessions. This is the one that I just offer because it's the most popular one. And this is a price that's only available today for 2 organizations if you want it, if you feel you need it. It usually goes for $17.60 and is available for $3.93 today. And it's really just because, like I said, entrepreneurship is near and dear to my heart. And I think there's great value in coaching. So if you think you can benefit from it and you want to commit to it, see me and we can talk about that. That's it. Thank you.
Fantastic.